All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rakakwadash, and double honors to our apostles and elders at Great Millstone do rule well. And salute, man. Much love to you sincere brothers who push this truth week in and week out, man. Y'all brothers, stay strong. We almost home. And this is basically a brief history on tares amongst the wheat in Israel, man. A brief history on so-called racial mixing in which the father is a so-called white man or Edomite according to the Bible, and the mother is an Israelite, whether it be a so-called Negro or a native so-called indigenous woman, you know. So yeah, man, brief history, and I ain't gonna say much. Like I said, I'm gonna speak a little bit about the Mestizos, the Creoles, and just a little bit about the history in Brazil, where they had a thing. I forgot the Portuguese term they call it, but it's basically a mass whitening in Brazil. You know, to try to so-called purify the race in Brazil when they basically imported like thousands, maybe even millions of so-called whites from different parts of Europe into Brazil to try to whiten the place up, man. They influenced, they promoted and influenced intermingling, interracial relationships with a white man with the Israelite women out there. You know, but I'm gonna start with this one real quick. This good little article, because Yahweh spoke about a parable on the tares and the wheat, man. And the tare, like I said, is basically the child or the product of an Edomite man and an Israelite woman, you know, because that child would not be an Israelite, man, because the bloodline, the seed line, the bloodline, your race is determined by your father's lineage, man, you know. So I don't care how black as night your mommy is, man. If your father Edomite, man, you an Edomite. If your lineage go back to Esau, Edom, you an Edomite. Or if your lineage go back to any other nationality, then you're that other nationality, you know? Your father got to be an Israelite in order for you to be the Israelite, no matter what nationality your mother is. So I'm going to read a little bit of this because battery ticking, man. This phone does not want to charge, so I'm just going to read some of this. Okay, I'm starting with a little bit on the Mestizos. And I'm going to say this, disclaimer, not all Mestizos are tares, but I'm just going to read you a little bit of history on the Mestizo, man. You know, not all Mestizos is tares. The word Mestizo means mixed race. You know, that's a term that's thrown around in Latin America. You know, not all Mestizos are actually tares, though. So, this is study.com. It says, Mestizo, definition, history, and culture. It says, in Latin America, Mestizos are a racial group with indigenous and white European ancestry. Learn how to define Mestizo. Explore the world's historical and cultural origins. Discover the populations of Mestizos by country and meet some. Okay, skip that. Okay, definition of Mestizo. In 1519, Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortez overthrew the Aztec Empire in Mexico and set up a Spanish colony. At this side was a Native American woman named La Malinche, who served as his translator. It's always that woman. Esau always got that woman, man. He always gets, that's how the serpent, man. That's the serpent. Go back and read the story about the serpent and Adam and Eve, man. That devil always come to that woman. But anyway, it says, at his side was a Native American woman named La Malinche, who served as his translator. Although she was given to Cortez as a slave, La Malinche played an influential role in helping him conquer this massive Aztecan empire with only a small army. The relationship between Cortez and La Malinche grew romantic. So was it forced? Because remember she said she was given to him as a slave. So was she forced? You know, or it could have been consensual, because a lot of the slave women, you go back to the history of the Judites in America, a lot of those slave women willingly went to Esau. They willingly dealt with Esau, you know, and looked down upon their own men. And you can see that today in them, man. Looking down upon their own men, because that men are in a compromised position. That men are at the bottom right now, and Esau is on top. So, you know, women love power. So a lot of them women willingly dealt with Esau. You know what I'm saying? So go back to this article. It says the relationship between Cortez and La Malinche grew romantic, eventually producing a son, Martin. Oh, damn tear. This baby, Martin, became one of the first examples of a mestizo, a racial category used in Latin America to describe those with both Native American and European ancestry. The word roughly translates from Spanish to English as mixture. Okay. Historical origin. When the Spanish began to colonize Latin America, they created a social class system for regulating their newly conquered territories. Okay, they used a racial system to rank people in the new world. At the top of the social pyramid were white peninsulares, whatever the hell that says, or Spaniards born in Spain. Okay, followed by white Creoles, or the children of Spanish born in the New World. Okay, the Mestizo population were the next highest social class. These were the children of Spanish and Native Americans. Very quickly, the Mestizo population became the numerical majority in Latin America, although they still had less power than Peninsulares and Creoles. Okay, underneath the Mestizos in the class system were Indios, or Native Americans, Negroes, black slaves brought from Africa during the slave trade, and mulattoes, the children of Spaniards and black slaves. So underneath the underneath the tares were basically the natives. The natives are what you would call Latin America today, you know, and the so-called Negroes. And it says the mulattoes, the children of Spaniards and black slaves. Okay. It says, based on recent genetic tests, most European heritage of mestizos is traced through the male Y chromosome, whereas most Native American heritage is traced through the female X chromosome. This is consistent with historical accounts because the vast majority of Spanish colonizers in the New World were men seeking gold, God, and glory. They wasn't seeking God, nigga. Get out of here. Men seeking gold. Their idea of God, they lying when they say they seeking God, man. And it says glory. Okay, gold. We're going to skip over where it says God. Okay, gold and glory. That's what they were seeking. Given the high ratio of men to women coming from Spain. Oh, and they were seeking the Israelite people too. They were seeking to destroy the Israelite people, man. And that's what they came to do. North, Central, and South America. That's what they came to do. So it says, given the high ratio of men to women coming from Spain, it is not surprising that Spanish men sought relationships with Native American women. No, they knew what they were doing, man. They were creating those little devil children. You know, but I'm going to jump around real quick because I'm not about to mess with the rest of that article. I'm not becoming a member to see the rest of that article. So that was just a brief history, man. You know what I'm saying? But on the Mestizo. But I'm going to jump to Creole. So the origins of the Mestizo. That's the origin of the Mestizo, man. Edomite father and a native mother, you know. But like I said, not all people who call themselves mestizos are actually tares. Not all of them, you know. Some of them are, some of them not. But I'm just giving you the origins, man, the etymology, the history on that, just a brief history on that. But before I continue, I'm gonna read Matthew 13. Start at verse 24. It says, another parable put he forth unto them. This is Yahushua speaking. It says, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while man slept, his enemy came and sowed tares amongst the wheat and went his way. But when the blade was sprang up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. The children of Esau who were planted amongst the Israelite people through the Israelite woman, you know. And some of them come out darker brown, some of them come out light brown, some of them come out looking like Esau ass, you know. But something about them, something in their spirit, something about their whole spirit and everything just show you they not our people. You know what I'm saying? Like we mentioned, amongst the so-called Negro, you got Lenny Kravitz, you got Tia and Tamara, you got who we got? You got Salakia. You got many tares amongst us, man. I'm speaking on the Latin tribes right now, but you got many tares amongst the so-called Negro too. Go check the history on slavery, man. Esau was making babies with a lot of his so-called Negro slaves, man. You know? But if you look at the Latin tribes, it's on another level when it comes to tears, man. It got to be a way higher count when you look at the history, man. So I'm gonna continue on this parable with Yahushua speaking. It says, verse 27. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then had the tares? He said unto them, An enemy had done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? And by the way, a tare is a weed that look just like wheat. You know, it looks just like wheat. So you got these tares that look just like the Israelites, the good grain. You know, it's a parable. It's a spiritual saying. So, okay. Verse 28, he said unto them, An enemy had done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, least while you gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them, because you never know. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to tell sometimes who's a tare and who's the good wheat, man. So verse 30, it says, Let both go together into the harvest, and in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs, and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof. Another parable spake he unto them, The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in. Okay, Slaka, let me jump back to the main joint. The disciples came to him to declare unto this parable. Okay, verse 36. I'm going to jump around. Okay. Then Yahushua sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. But before we do that, okay, verse 36. I'm going to read a little bit of this article right here from everyculture.com. Like I said, it's just brief histories. It says, unlike many other ethnic groups in the United States, Creoles did not migrate from a native country. The term Creole was first used in the 16th century to identify descendants of French, Spanish, or Portuguese settlers living in the West Indies and Latin America. There is general agreement that the term Creole derives from the Portuguese word Creole, which means a slave born in the master's household. A slave born in the master's household. So, just like you had in North America, you had Esau popping a lot of them Israelite women he had in his house and giving birth to them children, and they got to live in the house, man. Even though they were still classified as slaves, they had special treatment. Esau knew them was his seed line, them his children. But Esau such a piece of shit just because they had brown skin, he still classified them as slaves. So the same thing happened in so-called Latin America. It says a single definition surfaced in the early days of European colonial expansion, but as Creole populations established divergent social, political, and economic identities, the term acquired different meanings. In the West Indies, Creole refers to a descendant of any European settler, but some people of African descent also consider themselves to be Creole. In Louisiana, it identifies French-speaking populations of French or Spanish descent. Their ancestors were upper-class whites, many of whom were plantation owners or officials during the French and Spanish colonial periods. During the 18th and 19th centuries, they formed a separate caste that used French. They were Catholics and retained the traditional cultural traits of related social groups in France, but they were the first French group to be submerged by Anglo-Americans. In the late 20th century, they largely ceased to exist as a distinct group. Creoles of Color, the descendants of free mulattoes and free blacks, are another group considered Creoles in Louisiana. So some Creoles at that time were descendants of these Edomites, and some of them was actually Jake. You know, so In the 17th century, French explorers and settlers moved into the United States with their customs, language, and government. Their dominant presence continued until 1768 when France ceded Louisiana to Spain. Despite Spanish control, French language and customs continued to prevail. Many Creoles, however, are descendants of French colonials who fled St. Domingo, Haiti, for North America's Gulf Coast when a slave insurrection in 1791 challenged French authority. Okay, according to Thomas Fearer's essay, From La Torte to La Louisiane, an unfathomed legacy, Saint Dominique, these damn words, Saint Domingo, or Saint Dominique, whatever, had more than 450,000 black slaves, 40,000 to 45,000 whites, and 32,000 gens de color libres, who were neither white nor slaves. The slave revolt not only challenged French authority, but after defeated But anyway, the point is proven, man. Okay, a lot of Creoles are actually tares. Not all of them, like I said. But like I said, I'm giving you a brief history on tares amongst the wheat. Y'all shot spoke about the tares and the wheat, so I'm giving you a history on that, you know. And I'm gonna speak a little bit about in Brazil. Okay. Racial whitening. It says Blanqueamiento is an ideology that was widely accepted in Brazil between 1889 and 1914 as the solution to the Negro problem. However, racial whitening specific to Brazil also encompasses I'm just showing you, hey, there's tares amongst all the tribes. There's millions and millions of tares amongst us, man. You know? However, racial whitening specific to Brazil also encompasses the perception of individuals as being white in relation to their position in the class system. Supporters of the whitening ideology believe that the Negro race will advance culturally and genetically, or even disappear totally within several generations of mixed breeding. I'm gonna say this too. Some of them so-called white people that was breeding with them black folks and them natives, some of them so-called white people was jakes too, you know. So just because a person has a so-called white father don't automatically mean that person's an Edomite. It might be a jake, might be a speckled bird jake father, you know. So we'll continue on. This ideology gained its support from two scientific racism beliefs that were prominent during this time. And by the way, this article, this is what's this? Wikipedia, man. This Wikipedia talking about the racial whitening in Brazil. Okay, one being social Darwinism, and social Darwinism spawned straight from Esau Edom, is Satanism basically, which applied Darwin's theory of natural selection to a society or race, and the other being Aryanism, the belief that the white Aryan race was superior to all other cultures. By combining these two ideas, the white elites of the time believed that because white blood was superior, it would inevitably whiten their inferior races, which that's complete bullshit. Your so-called white skin, that's the mark of Cain, man. There's no benefits to being a so-called white person. I'm going to take a quote from Tariq Nasheed. The only benefit of being a so-called white person is in the system of so-called white supremacy, man. That's your only benefit. Other than that, there's scientifically no benefit, you know. There's millions of benefits to having melanin. But you can't name me not one actual benefit of that pasty pale skin. Hell, you're burning in the sun. And according to the Bible, your ass got leprosy, man. And according to the Bible, that leprosy, that white, so-called white skin, that translucent skin, is the mark of Cain, according to the Bible, man. So I'm going to read just a little bit more on this because the battery is getting low. It says the actual use of the whitening ideology seems to be particular to Brazil and was not seen in Europe or the United States. Many Europeans believe that the mixing of races would produce degenerate offspring, and they fear mixing could become a threat to the white race. In the United States, a barrier between black people and white people was formed by segregation, which forbade the mixing of the two races. In the 1910s and 20s, many states in the southern United States passed the one-drop rule, which classified a person with any African ancestry, no matter how small or remote, as black. Okay, Just to read a little bit more. Brazil, on the other hand, did not have the barrier of segregation, and the Portuguese were more accepting of miscegenation. Brazil was also already a multicultural society that already had a mixed class. When scientific racist beliefs and ideas became more prominent in the 1850s, Brazil society felt they needed to find their place in the social order by solving their problem with the supposedly inferior races. And the inferior races they were talking about was the so-called Negroes and natives in Brazil. Okay. Because they already have a multicultural society, the whitening ideology was a perfect solution. Most Brazilians thought this approach was a far better one than what the United States had done. A Brazilian statesman compared the United States and Brazil by saying, I'm gonna just read this last little part. And I'm gonna say this, man, about Brazil. Brazil actually has the largest. So Esau's plan failed because Brazil has the largest Negro population outside of Nigeria, man. The second largest population of so-called Negroes, man. So another failure by Esau Edom, man. You can't wipe us out. There's more of us than you, Esau. You can't wipe us out, bro. You know? But, of course, there are tares amongst us, and there are Israelites amongst y'all. There are Israelites amongst y'all. So I'm going to read just a little bit more of this. It says, a Brazilian statesman compared the United States and Brazil by saying, now comes the necessity to devise some method of dealing with it, the Negro problem. You of the United States are keeping the black peoples as an entirely separate element, and ye are not treating them in a way that fosters their self-respect. They will remain a menacing element in your civilization, permanent, and perhaps even after a while, a growing element. With us, the question tends to disappear because the black people themselves tends to disappear and become absorbed. You see the trickery, you see? But how did they become absorbed? Because of so-called racial mixing. Mainly the so-called whites getting with the black women. You know, but I'm going to continue this parable on the tares and the wheat. And yeah, leave it at that. And today, I'm going to say this, and today you still got a lot of Latinos running around. I forgot exactly how they say it in the Spanish about purifying the race, basically telling their daughters to get with so-called white dudes or very light-skinned Latinos to so-called purify the race to make it more and more white. You know? Yeah, they still running around with that fucked up mentality to this day. But those are just jakes who are colonizing the mind, and they've been manipulated for centuries, you know, so they messed up in the head, man. You know, they're defeated, and they kiss the ground Esau walk on, and they're going to be destroyed if they don't repent. So, back to the parable of the tares and the wheat. It goes, okay, hold on. Okay, verse 36 on Matthew 13, it says, then Yahushua sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, declare us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, he that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, Israelites, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. And you can also look at that in another sense too, spiritually, because you got spiritual tares amongst us too. You got niggas who are wicked ass niggas. They don't want to be living in the image of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. They don't want to repent. So you can count them as tares too, even though they're actually Israelites that's going to be destroyed. And then you got the elect, the children of the kingdom, you know. So this is a twofold parable. So, okay, the field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sold them is the devil, Esau. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. So we in the time of the harvest, man. Well, we coming into the time of the harvest. We right there. But the end is not yet, but we right here. and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered together and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. It says in the end of this world, Esau's world. It didn't say the end of the whole world. It said the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of the Father. Who had ears to hear, let him hear. Exactly. So, yeah. So just a little something. And just to prove that your bloodline comes through the fathers, man. When you read about the genealogies in these books, it's always man. You know? Many times it mentions a woman, it's basically saying that woman has some type of significance. You know, like when you read about Yahushua's genealogy, when it mentions a few women. You know? Those women had some type of significance. That's why they were mentioned, but your bloodline goes to your father, man. That's your seed line. Seed comes from seed is sperm. Your sperm is seed, man. You know, women don't produce sperm. So Numbers 1:18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their fathers, by the house of their fathers. I'm read it again. And they declared their pedigrees after their families, Salakia, after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward by their poll. Your pedigree, your lineage, man, it goes through your fathers. King Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived, said he came from the seed of man. Matter of fact, I get that, man. I'm leaving right there. There's many scriptures that prove that too, that your lineage comes through your father, man. You know? Wisdom of Solomon. 7, verse 1. I myself also am a mortal man, like to all, and the offspring of him that was first made of the earth. And my mother's womb was fashioned to be flesh in the time of 10 months, being compacted in blood of the seed of man, and the pleasure that came with sleep. Of the seed